set up a labor camp out front, and maintain a vigil until Shenli signed. Someone else then suggested that they go by bus, so rallies could be held all across the country, local boycott committees organized, and publicity generated, building momentum for the arrival in New York. Then why not march instead of going by bus, someone else asked, as Dr. King had the previous year. That was the Selma to Montgomery march. But it's too far from Delano to New York, someone countered. On the other hand, the Shenli headquarters in San Francisco might not be too far. About 280 miles, which an Army veteran president calculated could be done at the rate of 15 miles a day or in about 20 days. But what if Shenli doesn't respond, Chavez asked. Why not march to Sacramento instead and put the heat on Governor Brown, this is Governor Brown Sr., the first one, to intervene and get negotiations started. He's up for re-election, wants the votes of our supporters, so perhaps we can have more impact if we use him as leverage. Yes, someone else said, and on the way to Sacramento, the march could pass through most of the farm worker towns. Taking a page from Mao Zedong's Long March, we could organize local committees and get pledges not to break the strike sign. Yes, and we could also get them to feed us and house us, a practical person pointed out. And just as Zapata, Emiliano Zapata, the Mexican revolutionary, wrote his Plan de Ayala, which is like a manifesto for liberation, Luis Valdez suggested we could write a Plan de Delano, read it in each town, ask local farm workers to sign it, and to carry it to the next town. Then Chavez asked, why should it be a march at all? It will be Lent soon, a time for reflection, for penance, for asking forgiveness. Perhaps ours should be a pilgrimage, a peregrinación, which could arrive at Sacramento on Easter Sunday. And that became the march from Delano to Sacramento during Lent of 1966. And we didn't know what was going to happen. But as the march proceeded, it began to gather lots of attention. People began reporting on the marchers, why would you do this thing? When we got to Fresno, we had 2,000 people. It started growing and growing. And 4 days south of Sacramento, we got a call. We were in Stockton at St. Mary Square there. And somebody came running across into the park and said, Cesar, there's a guy on the phone who wants to talk to you. He says he's Shenli's lawyer. And we said, oh, some joke, And 3 times, finally said, okay, I'll talk to the guy. It was, sure enough, Shenli's lawyer, who said, this is becoming a big deal, this march. When you get to Sacramento, the whole eyes of the nation are going to be on you, and we don't want that to be a Shenli boycott, so we want to settle with you. Cesar asked permission from the marchers, came down here to LA, and had a meeting. It took like one night, and an agreement was reached for the first contract in the history of farm labor in California. Woo! Which raised the wages, created medical plans, job security, the whole thing. So on the eve of Easter, on Saturday night, we arrived at this Catholic school across the river from Sacramento, in West Sacramento, and people were sort of camped out there, and sort of was, like the Israelites camped across the River Jordan. And there was this one farmer, a guy named Roberto Roman, who had carried a 2x4 cross wrapped in black all the way from Delano. He stayed up that night, rewrapped it in white, decorated it with flowers, and the next day he led the march barefoot across the river bridge into Sacramento. We were met by 10,000 people, and it was really the beginning of the farm worker movement. Wow. So I use that example as creative strategizing. That was creative strategizing. And you see where it came from? Did one guy